We didn't have a chance to get to this last time. We were in the middle of the KUZARI in the third essay, where Rabbi Yehuda Halevi talks about a saintly or pious person who makes a habit of making blessings on a daily basis. And he looks forward to making brachas. It's not just something that he just spits out of his mouth because he knows he's got to and he says it by rote. But this is a person who sees the sensory pleasures in life as gifts from God. Page 287. He therefore now uses his senses as a means of giving God his due thanks. Our tradition is that the minimum number of praises for the Creator by which a Jewish man fulfills his obligation in this sphere is not less than 100 blessings daily. One starts to fulfill this quota by reciting the well-known blessings, those of the daily prayers, what we call the Birchos HaShachar. And then he should strive to supplement them with the blessings that are recited for fragrant scents, foods, tidings, and sightings. The more blessings he's able to say, the more he will increase his closeness to Hashem. This is what King David meant when he said, "My mouth will tell of your acts of merciful justice and salvation all day long, for there are too many to count." This means that even though no number of blessings can properly praise you, I nevertheless accept your praise upon myself forever, and I will never desist from it. So the pious person recognizes that no matter how much I praise you, Hashem, I can never fully, adequately, the human language, the human experience, the human intellect cannot adequately express enough praise to Hashem for everything that's going on in life. Does this sound familiar to you? Does this sound like something that's part of our liturgy? Can anyone identify where in our liturgy we actually make mention of that we simply do not have the adequate language?
Nishmas? Very
good, excellent. It's in Nishmas, which we say, you get there in time for Nishmas on Shabbos? It's very rare for women to get there in that early, but some women do it,
no,
and
I only know it because it was a song. Ilufinu Maleshira Kayam Sonenu Rina. It was a song. That's why I know it.
Okay. So it is there's a prayer called Nishmas Kol Chai, Nishmat Kol Chai, that we say every Shabbos morning. The origin of this prayer is extremely controversial. I have a whole shiur that argues that it was written by the first Pope of Rome named Peter, St. Peter. But that's a very controversial point. That's like blow your hats off, right? If I go into that. But we're not going to talk about that today. The prayer itself clearly is from the Talmudic period. It seems to be that it originates from Chazal at some period, either in the ancient or medieval period. And in this prayer it says, Ilu finu malei shira kayam. If our mouths were as full as song, as expansive as the sea, uleshonenu rina kahamon galav, and our tongues were filled with singing, like the multitude of waves of the ocean. V'siftotenu shevach kemerchavei rakia, and our mouths were filled with praise, like the expanses of the heaven. Ve'einenu mi'irot kashemesh v'chayareach, and our eyes were as illuminated in knowledge as the sun and the moon. V'yodenu frusot kinishrei shamayim, and our hands were outspread as the eagles of the sky. V'raglenu kalot ka'ayalot, and our legs were as swift as gazelles. Even if we had all of these tremendous abilities, nonetheless, ein anachnu maspikim lahodos lecha, we would still not have the wherewithal to adequately thank you, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu, ulevarecha shemecha, and to praise your name, al achas me'olef elef alfei alofim, for even 1/1000th of 1,000th of the things that you do for us all of the time, and the myriads upon myriads of times of goodness and kindness that you bestow upon us and upon our ancestors. And then we enumerate starting from taking us out of Egypt and so forth and so on. So I will share with you something fascinating. In Chovos HaLevavos, in the Shar HaBitachon, this is, by the way, if we ever finish KUZARI, Chovot HaLevavot is the next book on our roster. You know, I have a whole list of books that we have to cover, but you know, I don't know if we have enough time in our lifetime to cover them all adequately. Chovos HaLevavos by Rabbeinu Bachi ibn Pakuda is a very, very important work, and again, it actually predates the writing of the KUZARI. So it's one of the earliest books of the Rishonim that deals with Jewish philosophy. And there's a section there called Sha'ar HaBitachon, the gate of placing one's trust in Hashem. And in the 4th chapter of that section of the book, Rabbeinu Bachaya undertakes the very famous question. And by the way, this is not the same Rabbeinu Bachaya as the commentator to the Torah. One is in the 13th century, or actually early 14th century, and Rabbeinu Bachi ibn Pakuda of Chovos HaLevavos is in the 10th and 11th centuries, very early on, much earlier. This Rabbeinu Bachaya undertakes the question, why, if the afterlife is such an integral part of our faith, is it completely absent in any explicit way from the Chumash and indeed all of Tanakh? There is nary a mention of if you serve Hashem and you do my mitzvos, then I will give you a portion in Olam Haba. That sentence doesn't exist in the Torah at all. There are many other guarantees of blessing, but there is no guarantee of blessing in an afterlife. Now, this is a very famous question. You and I have actually discussed this question at some point, probably a few years ago when we were in our discussions of some points earlier in the KUZARI, and I'm sure we'll get back to this at some later point. But Rabbeinu Bachaya gives a series of answers. And one of the answers that he gives, which I haven't seen other commentaries say, but it's very innovative, and he says that if the Torah were to promise us that we get a good portion in the afterlife for the mitzvahs that we do, one would be mistaken to think that there is a quid pro quo going on here, meaning that in exchange for you kissing a mezuzah or for you making a bracha, you will get a share in the world to come. And what's the misnomer? What's the mistake being made? In reality, there is no equivalency. For me to kiss a mezuzah, I get billions of dollars. Now, Olam Haba is even more than billions upon billions of dollars. The wealthiest person in the world today, Jeff Bezos, right, of Amazon, does not have enough wealth as a person will have with even the smallest portion in the world to come, according to our tradition. So for me to think that by kissing a mezuzah I get a share in the world to come, for me to put on a pair of tefillin, for me to do an act of chesed, a hachnasis orchim, bikor cholam, I get an olam haba, there's no way that you can create that equivalency. And therefore the Torah did not want that equivalency to be created, and that's why Hashem omitted the rewards of the afterlife in the Torah. Based on what we're saying over here, the saintly person recognizes that no matter how much he's going to attempt to thank Hashem, he just is always going to fall short. You're probably familiar with that story in the Gemara, Masechet Brachot, that there was, in the times of the Gemara, the Shliach Tzibor's repetition of the Amidah was not as formalized as it is today. People did not have Sidurim, and we knew that there were 18 and then later 19 blessings of the Amidah, but the words hadn't all been completely worked out at different stages in history. So at the opening blessing, the Shliach Tzibor starts off and he says, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu, ve'Elokei Avosenu, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, ve'Elokei Yaakov. And then he goes, Hakel, Hagadol, Hakibor, ve'Hanora, Ha'izuz, Hanifla, and he goes on and he says all of these different adjectives to describe Hashem. And he's going on for several minutes. And Rava is there listening. He's there in the Beis Medrash listening to this tefillah. He waits patiently for the person to finish. And when the person finishes his blessing, he says, "You have nothing more to say? That's it? That's all you have? That's all you got?" And the point of that story, Rabbi told him, he says, "You've actually now just insulted Hashem. You've insulted him. Because if a king is worthy of being heaped with gold and you just give him silver, that's an insult. And after all, the King of Kings, the Master of the universe, is worthy of so much more. How did you dare to think that no matter how poetic and flowery your prose was, that you could properly heap praise upon the Ribbon Shalom?" It's the same idea over here. Okay? So this is the attitude of the saintly person. He knows that I'm a nothing, I'm a lima bean. In comparison to the gifts that I receive on a daily basis, Hashem makes sure that my heart beats and my circulatory system works and my nerves are firing and that the neurons in my body are firing and that everything seems to be working, Baruch Hashem, the way it's supposed to be working. That in itself is an infinite blessing. How can I dare to even think that I could adequately thank Hashem for everything that He's doing for me? And so therefore he views the opportunity to make a bracha as something amazing. Now he gets this idea that there's a custom to say no less than 100 blessings a day. Where does this come from? So I have for you the text of the Mishnah Berurah and the Shulchan Aruch. And that's what we had started to, we said we were going to come back to this the last time we studied. This is in the Shulchan Aruch in Simin Mem Vav. And the Shulchan Aruch writes, "Chayav Adam levarech b'chol yom me'a brachot lefachot." A person is obligated to make 100 blessings every day at a minimum. Now, if you notice, this only applies to a man, it does not apply to a woman. Just like so many other aspects of prayer, the mitzvah of tefillah is incumbent upon a woman according to the Maimonides, even from the Torah. But that aspect of prayer is nondescript. There is no obligation for a woman to daven 3 times a day. The biblical obligation for a woman is to pray, is to really supplicate and praise Hashem. And there's no specific format that is offered by the Torah. Rabbinically, that obligation of prayer is at least once a day for a woman to say the Shemona Esrei. And other poskim add that a woman also has to recite Kriya Shema and the morning blessings. And other poskim say that a woman has to daven mincha as well. And we certainly encourage the women of our community to follow those obligatory prayers of davening at least shacharis and mincha every single day. Yes?
You said if you notice this only refers to a man. How can you tell? Because it says Adam. Doesn't that mean a person?
It does. It does. I think you have to look at the context. The context of this siman in Shulchan Aruch, all of the halachos in this siman apply to men. But your question is valid. Many times the Shulchan Aruch will say when it applies only to men and not to women. But this applies apparently only to men. Now, what is the reason why a man is obligated to say 100 brachas a day? So the Mishnah Berurah says as follows in Sifkat and Yudalin. Hatam lefi shayu mesim b'chol yom me'an nefashot miYisrael. At one time in history, under King David's reign, 100 people were dying a day because of a plague. And David wished to put an end to it. And therefore, Tikein David al zeh levarech mea brachos b'chol yom. David HaMelech said, in order to counteract this affliction, we're going to now obligate every man to make 100 brachas a day, and this would stay the plague. So That's the historical basis for it. And then he says, V'hinei b'chol yom anu mevarchim od yoter mimea brachot. When you think about it, we, men, end up making more than 100 brachas a day if you take an inventory. And he goes through, he says, Keitzad, balayla kishul leich lishon, mevarech hamapil. The night when you go to bed, starting with the nighttime Shema, you make a bracha of hamapil chavlei sheina me'enai, or al enai, which is the bracha that you make before you go to bed, Kriya Shema Lamita. Uveshachar mevarech al natilas yadayim v'asher yotzar. In the morning when you wake up, you make al natilas yadayim and asher yotzar. Now this, of course, is universal, but up until now, everything we've said is universal to men and women. Va'od tesayin brachos v'birchas hashachar. Then there's another 16 that you make in the birchas hashachar, which is also universal to men and women. And then the next 3 are v'gimel brachos ala Torah. You make 3 blessings on the Torah. Women do this as well. Harei chaf beis. So now you're up to 22. U'birchas atzitzis u'tfilin. So now, again, we're not going to make, this is not universal to women. The bracha on tzitzis and tfilin. Harei od shalosh. Lefi min hagenu shemevarchim shtayim ala tfilin harei chaf hey. So now we're up to 25. 1 bracha on tzitzis, 2 brachas on tfilin, up to 25. Then Baruch she'amar v'yishtabach harei od shtayim, the blessings on Psukei de Zimra, is another 2. Baruch she'amar is the opening bracha of Psukei de Zimra, Yishtabach is the closing bracha, so we're now up to 27. Ubirchas kriya shma shacharis va'arvis in birchas yiru einenu shmona harei lamed hey. Then we get to the blessings of Kriya Shema. And he's putting both the blessings of Kriya Shema in Shacharis and in Ma'ariv together, which ends up being 35. V'nun zayin brachos the gimel tfilos. Then we have 57 brachos of 3 Shmona Esreis. Where do we get 57 from? Because there's 19 blessings in each Shmona Esrei. And now so that's the total of 57. So that's been a quantum jump. So now we're up to 92. Then we have 2 meals that we eat a day. And the assumption is, of course, that you're going to wash and you're going to bench. So you're up to now, that's 16 blessings. Because each meal you have 8 blessings. Al natilas yadayim v'hamotzi, v'dala bracha shebebirchas hamazon. You've got the 2 blessings before, al natilat yadayim and hamotzi. You have the 4 blessings of Birkas Hamazon, Ucheshushos Sakos, Birkas Hamazon, Mavarch Lefanav V'Lachar. And then you're going to drink a cup of wine at benching, which not everyone does. And not everyone washes twice a day. Or got to be on a low-carb diet, right? Everyone's got to be on a low-carb diet. So a lot of these are not really applicable. Harei b'sach hakol kufches brachos. So the final sum, you have 108 blessings every day. If you live this way, you'll have 108 blessings every day, and you'll always cross that threshold of 100 blessings. But if you don't bench every day and you don't eat bread every day, so you may end up falling short. But then he says, V'im kain, af b'yom tainis shechaslo surechas, gam kain mekayim kuf brachos. He says, therefore, even if you're fasting, so you only wash once at night, you'll still end up with 100, if not 108. But uviyom haShabbos chasalo yugimel brachos mehameya. But Shabbos you're going to have a problem because you're not going to have 19 blessings in each Amida, which was the biggest chunk of brachos. That's 57 brachos. So he therefore says that on Shabbos the way to make up is to make different brachos on fruit and sweets, and and then also of course you're going to make Asher Yotzar a number of times. Every time you go to the washroom, that's another bracha. By the way, today, if you're on a low-carb diet, but they also tell you you're supposed to drink 8 glasses of water. So then you'll be running to the washroom every 10 minutes. So you'll for sure make the 100 blessings every day, right? So you balance it out, right? But then he says that if you're still going to fall short, you can make blessings on bisamim. We saw this in the KUZARI. You can imbibe the scent of, let's say, like Sephardim do a lot, is they smell bisamim on Shabbos. They have these very fragrant myrtle branches. If you may have seen them in a Sephardic service, very often they keep them at the bima and they make a blessing. So part of that is to be able to make up the 100 blessings. And then also, of course, in a dire situation, you can listen to the blessings of the Haftorah. And those blessings of the Haftorah, since they're a communal blessing, you can count those as additional blessings. The problem is those who go out for Kiddush Club don't hear the blessings on the Haftorah, so I guess that's why they make extra brachas on herring to counteract the brachas that they missed on the Haftorah. Anyway, I'm Malamed Zchus. Yes, go ahead.
I remember when I first saw my teenage son coming into the kitchen Shabbos afternoon and sniffing the besamen, eating a nut, taking a bite of apple, and doing this, and I said, why are you doing this? And he explained to me that he has to make up 100 brachas because there's less on Shabbos. And something about it rubbed me the wrong way, because I said to him, but you don't want to smell the besamim or eat one nut or eat one bite of apple. You're only doing it so you can make up the 100 brachas, but isn't that like a bracha that you're making for nothing because you're not even hungry or you don't even want that?
It's a very good point. There is a concept in halacha called bracha she'einat tzricha. Bracha she'einat tzricha in halacha is that if you know that you don't need to make a bracha, you shouldn't, because you're supposed to be a conservative in making brachas, so that you don't abuse the name of Hashem. Some poskim learn that lo sisa, Hashem Hashem Elokecha lashav, the commandment of do not take the name of the Lord in vain, refers to making a wasteful or unnecessary bracha. I'll give you an example. If, let's say, I'm about to bench, but I know that I'm going to be eating dessert or some food immediately after I bench, I'm really not supposed to do that, because if I can subsume my eating before I bench, then eating again after I bench is considered to be potentially a wasteful bracha. There are many details and ways to circumvent this, but that's the general idea. I think, though, perhaps your son was acting virtuously in doing this, wanting to make up to 100 blessings, but at the same time, you've got to want to eat the nut. In other words, if you don't want to eat the nut, because you really don't want to eat, so then you're not supposed to eat. You have to create situations for yourself where you have the opportunity to make brachas. The point, though, but in the context of what we're learning over here, is that the chassid is a person who wants so much to bless Hashem that he looks for those opportunities in life. You see, I am what you call, the Gemara refers to such a person as chala bar chamra, vinegar the son of wine. You know, there's a very famous story about a rabbi who called himself, I am vinegar the son of wine, because my father was so pious that when he would have a fleischichs meal, a meat meal, he would wait an entire day before he would allow himself to eat dairy. But I only wait the time that it takes from one meal to the next, which is 6 hours. That's the way the poskim understand. So what does that mean? In other words, today, I look at certain very pious people who see an opportunity to say Birkat HaMazon during the week. So they'll wash, they'll make hamotzi, they'll eat a slice of bread, because they know that this way they've eaten a meal and they have the opportunity to bench. I'm always looking for the opportunity not to bench, because I don't want to have to take all that time, and I know I'm going to run through it and not say it with kavana, so I'd rather have a salad. Thank you. And but that's descriptive of a lot of people of our generation, and unfortunately I include myself in that category. A pious person is the one who says, I look for opportunities to say blessings to Hashem, because I know that every opportunity that I have, I'm doing more that I'm obligated or I feel a sense of duty to do, and no matter how much I say, I'm going to fall short. You understand? That's the attitude that we're trying to capture over here. Not to make a wasteful bracha that becomes a game, like eating, sometimes immature young men will do that. They'll say, well, the halacha says this, so let me eat a nut, and then, right? But that's not the idea. The idea is look for opportunities where I can use this world as a means, as a vehicle of expressing my love for Hashem. all the things that He gives to me in the world. That's the idea. Okay? So we'll hold it over here for today. Yeah, we'll have a share next week, right? Yeah. Next week is not a problem. It's not Tainus Esther until Wednesday, so we got plenty of time. Okay. All right, let's learn something about Parsha Zachor. If you don't mind. Thank you so much. Yes.
One question. Sorry about the blessings. You talk about very formal kind of blessings here, but for a woman, I don't know, like, can we say thank you, like a blessing for things that are like more mundane and they add up?
Of course,
to 100,
of course.
We don't have to.
Absolutely. You know, some people make it part of their vocabulary to always say Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. Thank God for this, thank God for that. How are you? Baruch Hashem. They don't always say how they are. They just say Baruch Hashem. So it's not always easy to tell how they're doing. You just have to remember when you say how are you and and you say Baruch Hashem, you have to say how you are. The reason why we don't say anything else is because we know the other person who's asking doesn't really care. So we don't even say. My wife tells me that once in a while to keep people on her toes. When someone says, how are you? She says, not so good. And they just smile and say, that's wonderful. And they keep on walking. But anyway, yeah, it's an interesting psychology, is that no one really waits to find out how you are doing.
I heard that it's better to say it's nice to see you, rather than ask how you are.
You know what? I think that's a great piece of advice. It's nice to see you. Because I'm not sure if do I care how you are? Yes, I do. But when I'm asking, am I really sincerely asking?
Do you really want to hear the whole Megillah?
Do I really want to hear the whole Megillah? Yeah, actually, I probably don't. And if I do, you have to make an appointment to see me. Okay. That's the problem, is that everyone wants to share with me, and I want to hear it, but I just sometimes, and I feel terrible because sometimes I feel like I'm not giving people proper attention. So we all have to know how to balance that time.